Yes, ladies and gentlemen, it's Joel Beya, and this is Five Reacts. That's right, all the transfers, all the good news. Myself and my guy, Mr. Ben Jacobs, joining again, man. Listen, I'm having a lot of fun, Ben, doing this, man. Numbers are good, the information's good, and yeah, man, you're keeping the Five audience up to date.
Always a pleasure, and hello from America. I've been following Chelsea out here, so I'm in deepest, darkest North Carolina.
Did you see there was a clip floating about regarding Pochettino's like tactics and stuff like that? Like, to be honest with you, I think people were just trying to hype it up online, but was he actually directing it? Was he doing anything different? Was he making them work really hard? Was it an open training session? Was it before a game? Because I saw a clip flying around, but I wasn't quite sure what it was about.
Well, Pochettino is putting them through their paces, and that basically means running and doing double sessions. So the players are quite exhausted, and that's a good thing in pre-season. But also here in North Carolina, it's relatively rural, so you can do a lot of running around university campuses and complexes, and it's about 35 degrees. So it's stuffy. And the players, therefore, are probably having to do all of the normal pre-season things like running up steep inclines, hot weather training, and then ice baths. So I think that the challenge for Pochettino is that he's got a young squad and a lot of new faces. So chemistry is key. So part one is fitness, and part two that we'll see as the side moves on to places like Philadelphia, Atlanta, Chicago, and Washington is the bonding side. And Pochettino, when he arrived at Chelsea on day one, held a barbecue for all staff. And that shows you the kind of character he is. He wants to ensure that everybody is integrated. And this is the thing about Chelsea. For all of their star names and star history, there's now a lot of young players. Kante's gone, Azpilicueta's gone, Jorginho went in January, Kovacic is out as well. And you suddenly have talents like Enzo Fernandez or Andre Santos, and all of them have huge potential, but not necessarily either the leadership qualities or the experience of some of the players that have exited. So Pochettino is trying to set the tone, and he did that against Wrexham in quite an interesting way. Chelsea were breaking away at half-time in their eventual 5-0 win. And because it's pre-season, maybe time can be a little bit more lax. There's sometimes an agreement with officials that you let phases of play run. So the referee looks at his watch. Chelsea are breaking away on a counter-attack. 45 minutes is up, and then the whistle goes. And even though it was only pre-season friendly, Pochettino comes storming out into the centre circle and effectively confronts the referee. Not aggressively, but he's gesticulating and he's waving and he's saying, "Why did you blow up?" And the referee's saying, "Because it was ultimately half-time." And Pochettino's saying, "You should have let that run. It's only pre-season. I wanted that attacking phase to continue because we would have scored again." And when you get a manager like that on game one of pre-season, setting the tone, being out in the centre circle and effectively fighting for his players, I think that shows you what Chelsea are going to expect throughout the season. This is a manager who's going to wear his heart on his sleeve.
He's going to be very demanding indeed. Sticking on the Chelsea topic, Caicedo, it's gone kind of quiet involving him going to Chelsea. Is that still the plan this summer, or do you reckon they've slowly eased off?
No, it's going to pick up massively because by a stroke of fortune, Chelsea's next game in Philadelphia is against Brighton. So this is Moisés Caicedo days that are going to be upcoming. And it's probably only gone quiet because the clubs will hold face-to-face talks, to my knowledge, in the build-up to that game. And obviously, everyone's going to be asking about Caicedo. So the thing that Chelsea and Brighton will want is some kind of clarity before that game kicks off. Is Caicedo going to play against Chelsea? Is he going to be removed from the squad? Are they going to get a breakthrough? And from Brighton's perspective, they've spent much of these negotiations trying to factor in Levi Colwill, who they desperately want. And they feel he enjoyed his time at Brighton and would like to come back and ultimately play European football. But Chelsea's stance as Colwill is not for sale. So this is why it's taking so long, because Brighton are almost saying, if you want Caicedo, we need Colwill. And Colwill is saying he's open, but Pochettino has now spoken to Colwill and informed the player that he has a pathway to ultimately play regular game time and start the first match against Liverpool. So it's been quite difficult because every time Chelsea have tried to do a cash deal, Brighton have done their best to factor Levi Colwill in or change the goalpost financially speaking, especially after the Declan Rice transfer at 105 million. So now we're at a stage where they're going to have to ultimately resolve this face to face. And I'm told that even Caicedo's agent is prepared to come in and facilitate those talks to force the issue, because Caicedo wants Chelsea. It's as simple as that. So Chelsea are looking at a package at around 75 or 80 million. Brighton, you may hear, want 100 million, but industry insiders are relatively clear that they don't think it's going to be that high unless Chelsea do something crazy and spend well beyond their means and their valuation. So the likelihood is that Chelsea will eventually get Caicedo done. It's just been complicated and it's going to take some time. But I think this week is big because the clubs are in the same place. They're playing each other. Caicedo is already back at pre-season training and he wants to be at a different club. So something's got to give. And I would imagine that it could well give before the game between Chelsea and Brighton to ensure that the Caicedo situation doesn't overshadow that match. By give, that doesn't mean that it will be done, but what it does mean is we'll get more clarity and progress as the clubs hold those face-to-face talks.
Obviously, another team that is in the States or making their way to the States as we speak. As we're recording, Lisandro Martinez has just posted a picture of him, Dalot, Bruno, Anthony, and Casemiro. They're on a plane looking really happy together. I want to talk about the Onana move. Manchester United, we heard that yesterday he's gone into Manchester to do the medical. Can we confirm, has that been completed? When do the Man United fans expect to hear a confirmation of their new goalkeeper signing?
I think Manchester United will hear confirmation relatively soon. Obviously, every club does a deal, including medical, and then chooses to announce it at a slightly different time. So that's up to the club when they announce it. But the Onana deal is basically done now, and Manchester United have been able to get the player for under 60 million euros, which was always their aim. And from Inter's point of view, they'll be glad of those funds because they need to move in the market. They're looking for a striker. It doesn't look like that's going to be Romelu Lukaku. Keep an eye, though, on Balogun at Arsenal, Inter have a concrete interest there, and he might be available a little bit cheaper than Lukaku, but not by much, by the way, because with Balogun, it was a 30 to 35 million ballpark valuation for Arsenal if they're going to sell, and the player doesn't want to be loaned out again back in January. And now I think there's about 10 million been added to that. So Balogun's not going to be cheap either. But from Manchester United's point of view, they needed a number one goalkeeper. That was obvious when it was clear that David De Gea was a free agent and subsequently hasn't agreed anything with the club. And Manchester United went for Onana because they believe that he has the athleticism and the dynamism to be a top goalkeeper in the Premier League. He's a really good shot stopper with authority in the box. And on top of that, he's off the back of an excellent season where he obviously reached the Champions League final with Inter. So the only question mark is perhaps that Premier League know-how. And he does at times have a tendency to be quite a gung-ho keeper. And I don't mean to alarm Manchester United fans by that, but he's very confident in himself. He's not the type of goalkeeper that will just stay on his line. He's not the type of goalkeeper that will always only look to catch the ball. He's quite prepared to make a definitive decision and come quickly off his line. He's capable of being sweeper keeper. He's got good feet and excellent instincts as well. So all these qualities suggest that he'll be a top Premier League goalkeeper. And Manchester United needed to get this one done quickly. I think we discussed last time I was on, there was about 100 million budget to bring in two players early for Manchester United. And then after, they'll turn their attention to get a goal scorer on top of that. But in that 100 million, they wanted Mount plus one other, and it had to be Onana in the end because of the David De Gea situation. And Manchester United simply cannot enter into pre-season without having that number one goalkeeper in place. So it's been a little bit uncertain at times. And I think Manchester United will look back and have some learnings on how they've handled this situation, because it went from De Gea staying to De Gea going. And then there was a period in the middle of uncertainty where De Gea was kind of posting clown emojis. And then concurrently with that, Onana was being chased. So if you're De Gea, he would have looked at that and realised that he was not going to be the number one goalkeeper, even if he did agree something to stay at Manchester United. And then there was still talk at the same time of Henderson and what his role was going to be at Manchester United, even though it's been clear for some time that Nottingham Forest want the player. And Henderson was never prepared to stay at Manchester United if he's not crowned the #1 goalkeeper. So it's become a bit of a goalkeeper saga with a lot of moving parts. But ultimately, all people will remember is Manchester United have got André Onana, and he's got all the qualities to be a top Premier League keeper.
Now, it's interesting. We're talking about all these players coming in, and we're going to give everyone an update on Rasmus Højlund shortly. But a player that impressed during the game against Lyon in the first half was Kobbie Mainoo, who is obviously part of the Manchester United Academy. He's come through, and we all know what United are like when it comes with young players. They want to give people a chance. And, you know, he could be the one this year that gets his opportunity. We could see in the last season or so it's been Garnacho, but it could be Mainoo's turn now.
Yeah, I think so. My understanding is that Manchester United have made the decision to keep him as part of the first team as opposed to loaning out. And of course, that can change throughout the course of the season, especially in a January window. But for now, Manchester United rate the 18-year-old. And that's because he's long been considered a kind of shining light.
Wonder kid.
With the academy, a wonder kid, whatever you want to call it. I think fans don't like wonder kid, but a hot prospect, call him what you will. Manchester United don't want to lose the player. And at this stage, they are not looking at loaning him either. There's been a fair amount of interest in a loan. My club, Leicester, were one of the clubs that inquired. Leeds United were also looking as well. And that shows you that there's a lot of clubs out there that feel that he's ready to be playing some serious first team football. And I think that Manchester United originally informed potential suitors that they were prepared to explore loan deals, but now they've kind of changed their mind. And for now, anyway, they want to keep him around the first team squad. And I suppose the pathway is there with somebody like Garnacho, who took a similar route and ended up in the first team and is now obviously a very established player at this kind of level. There were also a few other teams that looked at the player too. I think that from League One, there's a couple of clubs that are also interested as well. And that shows you that from 6 months ago, when it was League One clubs taking a look, one or two in Scotland as well, to now where there's championship interest, already people feel that there's that development and he's getting readier and readier and readier. Yeah. So Manchester United are going to keep him as part of their plans for now. And obviously, as long as development goes according to plan, there's high hopes for the player.
Good. Moving on to Rasmus Højlund. They don't currently have a number 9 that they can rely on.
They don't. And the funny thing is that despite Mount coming in and Onana became a priority because of the De Gea situation, but ultimately #1 priority all window position is a traditional number 9 and a goal scorer. And if Manchester United could, in theory, only get one player and one position, if we go back and we take Onana and Mount out of the equation, it would obviously be this position because, like you correctly say, they need goals. So the situation with Højlund at the moment is that Manchester United have agreed what can be called broad, or I would even say superficial personal terms with Rasmus Højlund. And that normally means that the basic terms are acceptable, but you maybe, if things progress, still have to talk about bonuses, or you have to talk about other smaller aspects or minor aspects. But we can effectively say that Rasmus Højlund wants to move to Manchester United and a basic series of personal terms have been agreed. And he's a primary target. It's absolutely true that Manchester United are looking at Kolo Muani as well. And the Harry Kane situation is a bit of a dream, but we should point out that, of course, he's been a Manchester United target. They just explored it and they feel that Daniel Levy won't want to sell. So that is why they are not as active. But with Muani, they are also holding discussions. So this shows you that they feel they've got the budget and the ability to move for a forward. And I think Højlund is the priority of the two, but it just depends whether it's feasible or not, because whereas the player wants the move, Atalanta are being really difficult as far as fee is concerned. And we heard reports maybe weeks back saying Rasmus Højlund, Manchester United, 35 million euros, 45 million euros, nowhere near. Atalanta will be looking for at least 70 million euros, and they may want add-ons on top. And some even say that because the Manchester United interest and because of the player's high ceiling, they want more than that as well. So if Manchester United are to pull this off, they're going to be looking at, I would say, a minimum of 60 million, and some even say higher. There will be compromise from Atlanta. You'll hear 100 million euros put out there. I think that it'll be lower than that. But this is a player with such a big potential, and Manchester United have the desire and the need for it. They're not going to be able to do it at 100 million euros unless Atlanta are somehow prepared to factor in a player swap. But maybe at 70 million euros or somewhere around that, if add-ons are part of it, something might be possible. But Manchester United obviously have problems under financial fair play to do this kind of deal, which means that number one, they might have to focus on outgoings first to raise more money. And number two, they might have to consider whether they can persuade Atlanta to do a different kind of deal. And that's why it's going to take a little bit of time. And that's why there's no guarantee that it's going to come off. But Manchester United are preparing an offer, and this is a priority. And it's a player that they want to get in sooner rather than later, because obviously if they start the season without a player like that, then they'll feel that they lack goals within their side.
Man United takeover, any updates?
I mean, we'll keep it simple because I know that fans don't want to go into all of the details. Number one, it hasn't been paused, contrary to some suggestions. Number two, there's a competing narrative. The groups feel they're now ready. So if they're picked, they can enter into the completion process, but they're lacking in that communication. So they're in limbo. They've done all the legal box ticks, the logistical box ticks, but the Glazers haven't said to either group that they're going to win. So they both feel that they're 6 feet from the finishing line, but they don't know if the finishing line is going to be moved or if a rival is 6 inches from the finishing line. But they feel ready. The flip side is sources on the seller side are saying the delay is all down to the groups. They're not ready. They're saying they're ready, but they're not ready. We're waiting for them. So the summary is that the groups say they're waiting for Rain and the Glazers, and the Glazers say they're waiting for the groups. And it's very difficult, therefore, to report as a journalist because you ultimately have two sides saying two completely different things. But the reality is that neither group is going to be in to influence this window at this point. And perversely, therefore, timescale is less important now than it was in April or May. Because in April or May, the urgency was to get in for the new season and the window. Now that cutoff has passed, even though that's highly disappointing and frustrating, it almost means if it's today, tomorrow, the next day, it's less relevant because they're not going to be able to do anything in this window. So that does mean that, again, the Glazers have got control over timescale, but it also means that the groups are resigned to the fact that they're not going to be able to do anything in this window, even if they are successful.
Mr. Morocco, Sofyan Amrabat, Fiorentina star. It looks like he's linked with Manchester United. I want to know, how true is this? Is Man United serious? I've always said that the priority was a striker. How realistic is this move?
Yeah, I think Manchester United have Amrabat on their radar for sure. But as you say, the priority is obviously to get in a striker. And it was interesting because when Manchester United signed Mason Mount, we heard that they were suddenly going to move for Moisés Caicedo. And that was gamesmanship in many ways because it was Chelsea's number one target and negotiations were ongoing. But what wasn't gamesmanship is Manchester United are in the mix for that midfield destroyer or that defensive midfielder. And Amrabat may well be a option. There's a lot of clubs that are looking, that have him on the radar. I actually think that Liverpool might be one to watch for Amrabat as well. We know that Barcelona have looked in the past. We know Atletico Madrid have as well. So this is going to be something I think that drags on over the coming days and weeks because everybody seems to be name checked at the moment. But as you say, Manchester United, before they look at a player like Amrabat, are going to be putting their time and energy and focus onto a traditional number 9.
Ben, Riyad Mahrez leaving Manchester City after winning a treble for a £30 million deal to join Al-Ahli. Am I saying it right?
You are saying it right, yes.
I don't know why I'm asking you, as if you're from Saudi, but I expect for you to get it right. Al-Ahli, right? Big money. How much is he getting per week?
It's a huge deal for Riyad Mahrez. I mean, with the total earnings, some say it's about 30 million a year salary, plus bonuses, plus added earning opportunities. So this one reminds me of the N'Golo Kante deal, where eventually it could be pushing something even close to 100 million a year if you factor in everything. So we're not just talking about base wage, we're talking about bonuses, we're talking about other earning opportunities.
Where's Rio? We need to do 5 Saudi, mate, or something, because
5 Saudi, yeah.
Seriously, Ben. Like, I mean, no wonder. It's hard to say no. He's 32 years old. He's got a great trophy cabinet. I still think he's the best winger in the league. Is he happy to go? I mean, from a footballing perspective, or does it not even matter anymore and it's just all about the financials?
Yeah, I mean, look, the financials are open to interpretation because the base wage will always be lower, but then you've got bonuses. Maybe you win the league. Maybe you get bonuses because you hit personal numbers, and then it's other earning opportunities, and that's what's quite cryptic. So when I say 100 million, we're not necessarily saying the base wage is 100 million, but he gets the opportunity by selling his image rights, but also by having partnerships all across the MENA region to earn a bunch of money. And this is where Saudi Arabia are working quite strategically, not just in Saudi Arabia, but other parts of the world. So I'm told, for example, that Riyad Mahrez has got a lot of business opportunities that add to his total package that he can pursue in the UAE. And for Mahrez, I just think that he fancies the project. And like many others, the money is too good to turn down at his age. And he wants to be a face of the new Saudi Pro League. And from Manchester City's point of view, for the right fee, they're quite happy not to stand in his way. And obviously for 30 million euros plus 5 million in add-ons, that's also good business for Manchester City.
Lastly, I want to look at Harvey Barnes' move to Newcastle for a £38 million. So from Leicester City to Newcastle, Harvey Barnes, 38 million. Didn't see that one coming.
Well, I think Newcastle saw Barnes as a top target. For some reason, throughout the summer, it was all about Maddison, and rightly so, because before they had brought in Tonali, a lot of the energy for Newcastle was on James Maddison. And in the end, Maddison and Spurs were able to get a deal done quickly, but Newcastle also backed off that deal. But Eddie Howe has always wanted a creative-minded midfielder. And Barnes, even though Leicester went down, had a phenomenal season with the Foxes. So it makes a lot of sense. And in the end, Leicester have got a great deal as well. The total package is around 40 million. You'll hear that number 38 quoted, and that may be the sort of region. But when I speak to sources on the player side, they're pushing a number that's more like 40 million plus add-ons, which suggests that it's a fantastic bit of business for Leicester. And it's money well spent for Newcastle as well, and a deal that I think will suit all parties.
I just want to say thank you very much for joining. If you guys want to see more of Ben Jacobs, please make sure you check the links in the description. We're going to have the reaction from Rio once the Onana deal is done, so please make sure you're watching. And we've got other shows on the channel as well. We're trying to keep you entertained during the course of the summer. We've got some big things coming, man. So please make sure you stay tuned. Joel Beya signing out on 5. Peace.